tomorrow and this will all be over kind of thing, you know? It's like a dream almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's not a dream. And I know that it's not a dream, but the thing is, you know, just adapting to this kind of reality that we're in and trying to stay as positive as possible. And one of the ways that I have done that is really connecting with Sandy. So, you know, we're just really like-minded, and we're doers also. So that's the thing, when you're sitting at home, you need to do something. And so, of course, I was joking with my husband last night. I'm like, yeah, just typical of me. You know, I can't just like not do anything and enjoy some of this time. No. I'm going to talk to Sandy and go, oh yeah, we should do this. And then the next thing you know, we're doing this.
Exactly. Exactly. And Renata, I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be recording the session, which is now live. I just wanted to make sure you're okay with that before we get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay.
For sure, no problem.
So I'm just going to go over here and share my screen and get it to play and get us going. And as others join us, I'll just let them into the session as well. So welcome, and thank you all for joining us today on the webinar entitled Leading and Managing in the Times of Stress. And it definitely is that time of stress. I'd like to introduce our facilitators, which we're very honored to have Mary Aaron, who is an HR director at NextLeaf. Mary has worked in HR for 16 years, creating and developing and delivering programs to support the needs of teams and individuals, increasing their engagement, adding value, and contributing growth to the bottom line through highly engaged and productive staff. Myself, I'm Sandy Horton. I'm a business transformation facilitator, and I specialize in the areas of change management, leadership development, and employee engagement. And I champion organizations, especially right now, to be able to help them to get through this crisis and to lead the way forward. So what can you expect from this webinar today? Well, it really depends on yourselves. It really depends on how you look at this and your part in taking your own leadership in order to move forward. We are going to cover some great areas, and you can see on the screen that we're going to cover a bit about leadership, obviously, supports, change management, grief, managing crisis, the ladder of responsibility, along with some other important strategies and tips in order to help you move forward. You will walk away with a better understanding of why people respond in certain ways, a better understanding of how grief and change impacts you personally and as a leader. And again, you'll walk away with tips and strategies to better lead and manage your team if you have one. Mary and I decided to do this webinar as we were having our bit of our opening conversation, is we're really all in this together. This is a challenging time for everyone. We want to give back to our community in which we live. We believe it is a time to share knowledge. We are all better able to manage when we're able to talk, learn, and apply new learnings. So how did we get here? What has been happening in our world today? A pandemic strikes. At the end of December, this outbreak starts, or we start to hear a little bit more about it. We are seeing it through the lens of TV happening in China, but then cases start to pop up in small pockets. It's here now in Canada. Oh my gosh, BC, we've got our first cases. In March, we're starting to really start to see the escalation, and the chief medical officers are, Dr. Bonnie Henry is doing our daily updates. She's escalating things. Things are starting to close. We're told to social distance, to put these measures in place. We feel, for some, really isolated. Then a full shutdown. Major impacts. How does this make you feel? what shows up for you? What feelings are evoked? For me, I know I absolutely felt overwhelmed, upset, nervous, anxious, fearful. We know that there are three parts, three brains, if you may. First is our primitive brain, which is first developed when we were, as our ancestral development started, which is really about our fight and flight response. It keeps us alive. As we developed and evolved as a species, we became more aware. Our emotional brain developed to then our rational brain. All these three brains work cohesively together to keep us alive and functioning. But in times of stress and in times of uncertainty, what happens to us? We get these feelings, these emotions come over us, and we're completely scared as leaders. We take action, we jump in, we're reactionary. What else happens to us? What did we see in our community, which may have also heightened our reactionary state? I think we can all relate to this. The hoarding behavior was exhibited. Oh my gosh. We saw so many cases of people walking out with rolls and rolls of toilet paper. Why? Why was this happening? Because your primitive brain had taken over. The fear that I may be without, the fear I need to do something to protect myself and my family. When an individual's fight and flight response is activated, your emotions go haywire. Your rational brain is not engaged. This is when, and I'd love to hear from you, this is when I know I saw or I felt really a tunnel vision. I felt maybe some pessimistic attitude about life. I really felt there was more of a generalized threat, and I couldn't be my creative self. I don't know if that showed up for you, but I know I definitely, in the initial stages, even just reading the progression of this crisis, to feel like, oh my gosh, this is doomsday. It was dramatic and it was unprecedented. So why did this happen? What happens to us? We as individuals really, for most, don't handle or manage change well. There is actually 3 stages of change that we all go through at any one time. And I have a visual here from William Bridges, and he simplifies this very nicely in saying that these 3 stages are really about ending, losing or letting go of things. And when you're able, and those things are done, or they are final, or there's uncertainty and the old way is done, you go into what we call as a neutral zone. And it's that gray uncomfortableness, that trepidation. You're not really sure how we're going to make it to that new side or that new beginning. So there's definitely these 3 phases that we have to go through: ending and letting go, a neutral zone, and a new beginning. What do we see in that middle gray zone, or even when things are ending or have ended quickly, dramatically, in an unprecedented time like this COVID-19 crisis has done to all of us? Our emotions are raw. We're raw as people. We may be more reactionary for others. We may see people crying. It's heartbreaking. You just see it. You're not able to hug anyone anymore. The old way of embracing and connecting is now done. And faces tell us a lot. There's sadness, discomfort, angst, fear, and we feel it in our body. The body shows that discomfort. I know for myself, I really felt it in my stomach. For others, you may feel it in your throat, in your hands. There's different ways that we show how we're feeling. And it's really important that we start to understand that. And you'll see that in our kids, and we'll see that in our employees as well, if we have them. Because we do internalize that stress. So what is happening for us as a leader in order to move through this more effectively? We need to understand, honor, and accept that we are all grieving. I love the visual and the work done by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her model on grieving and the 5 stages of loss. This applies to everything and to everyone in all the situations that we're going through right now. The 5 stages are where we get the shock and denial, where we can feel that sense of numbness we talked about, the sense of fear. We then can transition into anger, anxiety, irritation. For those who may have employees, you may see your employees feeling or acting very agitated with each other. You may get more conflict showing up in the workplace because things are uncertain. You're having to transition people to a new role. They don't understand it. Then you progress into depression and detachment, the blahs, the lack of energy, helplessness. How am I going to get through this? Then as we move through the dialogue and bargaining, we start to say to ourselves, how do I get myself out of this? We struggle to find meaning for what has happened. Why now? Why COVID-19? Why as me as an individual having to go through this? Why as a community, a global community even, why are we going through this? We start to reach out to others to try to find our new way forward. And then ultimately there's acceptance. We find a new way, a new plan to move forward. The one thing I wanted to add with this is that this is not a linear process. You can go from shock and denial to feeling very low and overwhelmed in depression and detachment, to then getting angry and frustrated, to then bargaining. Oh, I think, you know what? I know I've got 2 weeks. The government's told me, the chief medical officer, that I can get out of this. No problem. We're going to be moving through this. We're doing okay. All right, I'm putting some plans in place. So you go back and forth across this grieving process. It's very important just even to have this graph to look at. It truly reconfirms where we're at. And we can ask ourselves these very important points. And especially as a leader in this crisis, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel you have to jump in, where are you within your own process? Are you trying to control everything? Are you getting angry at your staff? Okay, I know where I am. So my question to the group is, where are you at in looking at that? And we'll share this model with you as well. So my ask is, where are you at? Are there ways that you can manage and basically track? How are you doing? Where are you moving forward? Where are you falling back? What is your plan to move forward? So how we adapt and embrace these unexpected changes is a skill that can be learned, because we know change is always there. It is a normal process in life. Even if we don't want to accept change, change is there. And you truly are not alone. We're all in this together. But what is important is the perspective. And Mary will take us through that section in a little bit, because perspective is powerful. How you look at it, the attitude, the understanding is, how am I going to shift from that primitive anger, reactionary brain to move forward? What is in my sphere of influence? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. And having ownership of everything that comes from you. One of the great tools that I love to bring forward in a time of crisis is looking at the ladder of self-responsibility and accountability. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this or have utilized this tool, but it basically looks at a ladder, and there are different steps that we would like our individual selves to move up on. The first one is being unaware, unconsciously unaware, moving to blaming others, using I can't excuses as the third rung. Fourth rung is wait and hope. Acknowledge the current reality, moving to own it, defining solutions, and making it happen. Even at the beginning of this, and Mary was sharing with some of you how, attaching yourself and connecting with like-minded souls that want to do things or help you move up this rung is very, very helpful. And from the fifth ladder up, or the fifth rung, up, from acknowledging your reality, you become accountable. From below that, from wait and hope, I can't excuse, blame others, having an unconscious unawareness, you are in a victim mode. And that's where you think back to yourself, why and what's happening for me right now, how am I processing things? Which part of my brain is showing up? Am I just reacting? Adding to this, which is really important, is your own emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? You may have heard of this before in a number of different ways, but really, it truly is having the capacity to understand your own individual recognition of emotions, how emotions are impacting you, and your ability to read others in times of when you truly need to really understand what's happening for others, showing empathy. This crisis, really, you see those that have high emotional intelligence. They're able to read, assess, reflect, and respond, and cope much stronger. Adding to that, in terms of your emotional intelligence, having emotional intelligence really does help you show up. Because if you're starting to feel angry and those reactionary ways of being, and you're overwhelmed and you're fearful, if you're firing super hard and super fast and taking over the business and not listening to your employees or not bringing resources in to help you, wow, how are you showing up? Maybe this is the time to pull back and reflect and say, what is triggering me right now? It has an impact on, again, as I mentioned, your impact on others, your ability to cope, to build and maintain relationships. And importantly, it has a direct correspondence to how you can manage your stress. Seeking ways when you're self-caring, being aware of your own triggers. What's happening for you in this moment? Do I need to go, and Mary will talk about some coping mechanisms in a moment. What do I need to do? Move away, care for myself differently. And again, having empathy for others, especially now. Sometimes it just takes, how can I help you? And just sitting and listening. But you have to have that understanding of yourself to be able to read that in others. So I'd like to shift it now to Mary, who's going to take us through your perspective and the power of those different elements. Mary.
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your perspective and how that impacts pretty much everything that you do. And if I could just ask that each of us think about our perspectives. When we first get up in the morning, what is that perspective? And what do we want our day to look like? Do we choose to have a positive attitude, or do we choose not to? And it really is a personal choice every day. So thanks, Sandy. One of the things that you could do is do a personal inventory. And you've probably done this, I know I have. Pretty much immediately when I was isolated at home, it was like, who do I need to connect with? Who do I need to talk to very quickly? And so developing that personal inventory and really highlighting those individuals that or have that positive attitude that can help you, but perhaps you can help them too, right? You're going to have individuals in your inventory that obviously are still not able to move forward. And those are friends that you are going to need to be there for and to listen to. You won't be able to solve all the problems for them, but to be a friend and to listen and ask them how you can help them is a fantastic thing for you to do. As a leader, first of all, you cannot over communicate with your team. So communicate, 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 and preferably by video. Okay, so you can use things like FaceTime, Messenger, or Zoom. Those are three that I know of. There may be other ones. You may have some inter-company. We have Teams actually at NextSleep that we utilize. So something like that where you're actually having video meetings on a regular basis. And I would say if you have a team, you should be speaking with them every single day. Recognize and utilize the great people that you do have on your team. You know who they are. Pull them in, ask them to help you in this process, because you as a leader do not have to do it all by yourself. You have a team to help you. You have those resources, and actually they need a purpose in their life as well. They need to feel as though they're helping and making a difference, and that will help them get through this at the same time. As a leader, and Sandy has spoken about this, and it's the empathy part, listen to your team. They need to be heard. And also as a leader, you need to be open to their views and their ideas. This is a time when I think some creativity is going to show up. So people are going to come up with ideas that perhaps you didn't think of as a leader and that you can utilize with your team. So go ahead, communicate with them, listen to them, and utilize that. And then also setting out expectations and accountability and ownership for work that is to be done by your team. So this is all part of that daily communication, setting goals daily, having people accountable for what they're doing and reporting to you on a daily basis. So there are things within your control and things that are not within your control. And why stress about the things that you cannot control? So this diagram is really great, I think, that it talks about things that are in your control. So let's focus on those things. You can control your attitude. It can be positive or not. How I follow the recommendations of Health Canada and my social distancing. I can choose to follow those requests or I can't. Turning off the news, not watching so much news throughout the day, picking the times when you do want to catch up on what's going on, and limiting your social media. Finding fun things that you can do at home. We need to add some fun into our lives. So finding some fun things to do. And also, I mean, my favorite is kindness and grace. Being kind to others and graceful, not only to others, but also for yourself. This is a time for us to be easy on ourselves, because I think that as doers, and I'm sure that most of you listening are those, because that's why you're watching this webinar, it's hard not to set all these lists of to-dos and checking them off all the time, because you don't feel like you're being productive if you don't do that. But the thing is, you also have to take care of yourself, and you don't have to have a full-on list going on. You've got to have some time for self-care as well. Being mindful. That is taking control of what we focus our attention on in the present moment, whether it's emotion, thought, belief, an impulse, a sensation, or something in our surrounding environment. Being mindful is approaching that thing with a curious, open, and accepting attitude. And I really liken being mindful to when you're with somebody, be with them. Don't have all these other distractions where it's obvious that you're really not present. Be present for the people around you. And also be open to self-exploration and self-reflection. This is a time for you, as I said, for the self-care. What types of things can you do for yourself that perhaps even allow you to grow during this time that you're in isolation and working from home? This is a time for you to do things maybe a little bit differently than you've done in the past. seek out people to communicate and connect and collaborate. This is huge for right now. I think that this is probably one of the more common themes that we're hearing in all of the webinars that we've participated in, all of the literature that we've been reading. It just really emphasizes the need and desire by people to want to connect and communicate and collaborate. Reach out to some new people and groups as well, right? There's opportunities if you're a member of LinkedIn or I know I myself, I'm getting tons of emails and being invited to webinars and all kinds of events. Take advantage of them. You know, there's so many, you can't do them all. So you have to pick and choose which ones you want to go to. But absolutely do that because one, you're bettering yourself, but two, what you're getting out of those is you can share with all of those around you. So whether it's the people, your coworkers, or whether it's the teams that you manage and you lead, you're going to get some real golden nuggets out of these things. So absolutely participate in those. And lean in. Do something that you're afraid of, okay? Hosting a webinar, for example, right? Or, you know, things like that. Like do something different that you haven't done before that you've been afraid to tackle, but now's the time to do it. Could be learning a new language even during this time. I hear people doing that and, you know, they've always been afraid to do it, but there's, you know, the Duolingo and other apps that you can do. And confront the fear head on. If you just lean into it, it's actually not going to be as scary once you're in it as you thought it was going to be. Journaling is a great thing to do. I don't know if any of you are doing that right now, but journalizing your thoughts, meditating daily. There's some great meditation apps out there and there's lots of free stuff. Exercise, absolutely, and I would recommend that everyone get outside for a walk every day, get some fresh air, and see the flowers that are blooming and the trees that are blooming and the sun that's shining and spring is here. It gives us some hope and positivity in this time. And for those of you that need some spiritual kind of to feed your spiritual side, do that. Find a way to feed that spirituality in you. Like I said already, get outside and walk, talk things out with a friend. Give yourself time. Like I said, be easy on yourself. And one of the things that I find out is getting dressed every day so that, you know, you're not in your pajamas. So, you know, the basic things, pretend that you're going to work. Maybe if you're not doing anything on video, it doesn't have to be anything, you know, fancy or anything like, you want to be in comfortable clothes. But if you are doing like, you know, video conferencing, you can even have your jeans on the bottom of or your stretchies and, you know, just a nice top on the top because nobody's going to see the bottom when you're sitting down. But yeah, getting yourself ready as if this is your work day and setting goals for yourself each day. And I believe that all of these things are going to help you build resiliency. And I think resiliency is going to be a word that we hear a lot about over the next several months, being able to take this situation and move forward in a positive way. And I think that the more we work on this and the more we work on it as a leader and as a manager with our teams, the more resilient our people are going to be as well moving forward.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. So this was a quick comprehensive webinar, and what we've covered today in the last 30 minutes and a bit is why people respond in a certain way. We've looked at better understanding of how grief and change impacts you personally and as a leader. And we've offered some tips and strategies to help you better lead and manage if indeed you have a team. One of the great things that both Mary and I have taken away from our recent webinar, Dr. Carlos Davinovich said this very amazing quote that I think will become very evident as we all move through this crisis. This is a time when empty suits and hidden gems are revealed. Let's all be the hidden gems.
sure.
So thank you so much. That concludes our main part of the presentation for the webinar, but I'd like to open it up to questions and turn it over to those who are in attendance. I'm gonna just stop the share right now. Give me one moment. And I'm just going to